in our community board district. I'm gonna let, I see we have a lot of names. Jennifer, hi, Mabel, Jesse, Lyle. I'm sure I'm missing Jackie Lazaro. And so if you guys just, introduce yourself, just so Omar, you can grab the names and all of that, and I will hand it off to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Debbie. First, just to introduce myself, good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Santa Ynez, and I'm the Manhattan Deputy Borough Commissioner with the New York City Department of Transportation. It's really nice to see many of your faces and hear your voices. It's nice to feel connected in this way. And first, I just wanted to take some time to extend my regards to everybody joining the call. I hope that you and your families are healthy and staying safe, not only through the last few weeks of the pandemic, but especially throughout the last few days of rallies, protests, community uprising, and community togetherness. So I hope that everybody continues to stay well. I wanted to thank Community Board 12 for hosting us tonight to share our plans to expand Citi Bike into Northern Manhattan. Thank you to all of our elected officials, the Borough President's office, Councilmember Rodriguez's office, Senator Jackson, and all of your elected staff for your continued support and partnership and feedback on all of the DOT projects that we've worked with you on so far. And thank you to all of our neighborhood partners and community stakeholders. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback after we present our plans to you tonight. Our partner Lyft has been busy installing new stations across community boards 9, 10, and 11 in Manhattan, as well as in Bronx CB1 since last month, making Citi Bike a 4-borough bike share system. So that's very exciting. And my colleagues at DOT have also been hard at work with remote setups at home, as many of you are also teleworking, to come up with a network plan that will provide residents of CB12 with access to this safe, healthy, and affordable option of bike share. So as I mentioned, and as Debbie mentioned, we're here to get your feedback on our proposed station locations around the district. And we're focusing our presentation tonight on the southern portion of the board from 155th Street to 184th Street. We're going to take the feedback that you share with us tonight, make adjustments to our plans over the next few weeks, and start to install these stations over the summer. And we'll return to the board to present our plans for the northern portion of the district later in the year, with those stations being installed next spring. So I also want to introduce my colleagues who are joining me tonight from the Manhattan office. Lyle Blackwood and Jackie Lazaro. And from the bike share team, we have Lisa Marasco, Jesse Cabrera, and Mabel Kessler, who is the expansion planner for the bike share group. And she'll be running through the presentation tonight and sharing her screen. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mabel.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And so I will share my screen now. Oh, it says it's disabled currently for me to share the screen. So.
Debbie, is it possible, or Ebenezer?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, Ebenezer, can you get Mabel? Wait, how do you say your name? Your first name?
Mabel.
Mabel.
Yeah.
Then I didn't do that right to start.
Okay.
So she can share her screen. Wait, let me give one more try because I thought I could do it. No. One sec.
I
Ebenezer?
believe you have to make her a co-host.
Okay, we're working on that.
Okay.
We're working on that.
Thank you, Ebenezer. Hi, Gerard.
Greetings, Deb. Sorry. Hello. Hi, all. Okay.
And one thing I want to note is that while this is getting set up, the presentation and the draft map are both available online at our website at nyc.gov/bikeshare. And we can give you the link after the presentation is done.
Very good. And I think Mambel, you should be able to do it. I think you're a co-host now, so.
Okay, let me try. Let's see. Okay, I think it.
There we
Okay,
go.
okay, Mabel, you are a co-host. You did it? Okay,
There.
good.
Yeah, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Great. All right, so thank you again for joining us to talk about bike share in Washington Heights. And first, I'll just start off by going over the basics of bike share and the Citi Bike program in New York City. So bike share is a network of shared bicycles that's intended for point-to-point transportation. It helps increase mobility, giving people more options for getting around their neighborhood or for connecting to other modes of transportation. These systems operate 24/7, 365, and there's no worry about bike storage or maintenance because that is taken care of by the bike share company. And as we move forward, we're always mindful of our environmental impact, and bike share is a good way to move around the city emission-free. So Citi Bike is New York City's bike share system. It's a private-public partnership between the City of New York and Lyft. New York City DOT is responsible for the system planning and outreach, while Lyft is responsible for the day-to-day operations and equipment. No city funds are used to run the system. All funds are generated through memberships and sponsorships. Citi Bike is a station-based system made up of a network of 900 plus stations where users can pick up and drop a bike off at any of the stations within the service area. The stations are solar powered. They are not hardwired into the ground, meaning that if construction or another issue arises, stations can easily be moved. Stations are modular and can be placed on the sidewalk or on the street, depending on a variety of factors. So last week, we actually celebrated, Citi Bike celebrated its 7th anniversary, which is pretty exciting. The program launched in May of 2013 with 330 stations and 6,000 bikes that were located in Manhattan below 59th Street and downtown Brooklyn, as shown in the light blue on the map. Starting in 2015, we began expanding the system to more than double its size by the end of 2017. As shown in the royal blue, the phase 2 expansion area included the upper east and west sides of Manhattan. We went deeper into Brooklyn, into neighborhoods like Red Hook, and we went into Queens for the first time, into Long Island City and Astoria. So we are currently in our phase 3 of expansion, which began in 2019 and will continue through 2024, doubling the existing service area. This expansion will cover the rest of Manhattan. It includes the Bronx for the first time and goes deeper into Queens and Brooklyn to neighborhoods like Elmhurst and Sunset Park. And the program has seen incredible growth in the year since its launch in members and rides per day. The program has over 150,000 members, annual members, and routinely sees over 90,000 trips a day during the busy spring, summer, and fall months. Since launch, there have been over 98 million trips taken, which is a testament to its popularity and shows that it's a mode that New Yorkers want and use. There are a variety of pricing and membership options from annual to casual to 1 or 3 day passes, as well as single rides. The single ride option is $3 and gets you 30 minutes of bike riding. And once you dock, there are no additional recurring fees. There are day passes and 3 day passes that give you unlimited 30-minute bike rides over the course of a 24-hour or 72-hour period. And the annual membership, which is about $170 a year or $15 per month, gives you unlimited 45-minute rides. Citi Bike also offers discounted memberships for certain groups. The reduced fare bike share program gives NYCHA residents and SNAP recipients access to Citi Bike for $5 a month with no annual commitment. In addition, there are also partnerships with community development credit unions, which also gives members access for $5 a month, but there is an annual commitment. So as Citi Bike expands into more neighborhoods, we want to build awareness that this is an available transportation option for those who want to use it. Citi Bike has different community partnerships and programs to help encourage ridership in low-income neighborhoods and underrepresented communities. One program is the Lift Up partnership with the YMCA that gives a free year of Citi Bike to eligible 16 to 20-year-olds. Lyft also has community grant program that distributes grant money to nonprofits and other community-based organizations that can be used to fund programming or events or activities that help spread awareness and encourage ridership. So as the city grapples, with the spread of COVID-19, DOT is working closely with Citi Bike to ensure that New Yorkers have a safe way to get around town. And Lyft and the DOT are working together to ensure that there's an increase in cleaning efforts at depots and operation vehicles, as well as near high-use medical facilities. And understanding that access to transportation, that is socially distant and convenient is crucial for essential workers. In March, Lyft, in partnership with the City of New York, launched the Citi Bike Critical Workforce Program. And this program provided eligible members of essential services with free annual memberships. And the deadline to enroll in that program was May 31st. So next, I will be talking a little bit more about our planning process and the public outreach process for the Citi Bike program. So in order to have a successful system, we need a high density of stations in the program. And in planning the system, we maintain a network density of 28 stations per square mile, so that wherever you are inside the service area, you are never more than 3 to 5 minute walk from a station. We aim to have a station approximately every 3 to 4 north and south blocks and every major crosstown blocks, with larger stations near transit hubs or key destinations. So public outreach, and along with our technical siting criteria and the network considerations, help determine where stations can be placed. And some of the siting criteria, we take into consideration hydrants, utilities, ADA accessibility, among other factors. So, as with our other expansions, we wanted to know where residents of Washington Heights wanted Citi Bike stations. So we held a community board workshop to gather feedback on location preferences and then if residents weren't able to make that, we also held 3 pop-up outreach workshops throughout the neighborhood at various community facilities. And there was also an online feedback map where people could drop pins, also stating their preference for locations. We also engaged with major stakeholders like hospitals and other city agencies to receive additional input. So shown here, we have the map that was presented at the CB12 workshop, and you can see participants were asked to place yellow and red stickers to indicate where they wanted Citi Bike stations to go. And so taking all of those comments through the outreach, we synthesized them, and you can see in the dark blue circles is where there was higher community preference for Citi Bike stations. And we also, in creating the draft plan, tried to eliminate sites that were unpopular or might be an issue for Lyft operationally, and those are shown in red on this map. So we combined this information to create a draft plan map, which we will review and go into more detail a little bit later in the presentation. But first, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that Jennifer mentioned at the beginning, that we will be installing in this community board in 2 phases. And so this summer we will be installing from 155th Street to 184th Street, 30 stations. And that's really to create a contiguous service area across Upper Manhattan and the Bronx. As you can see in the accompanying map, we will be moving to the Bronx after Washington Heights and then coming back to fill out the rest of the community board next spring. So following tonight's presentation, we will take additional feedback and make adjustments where we can to the draft plan. And then we'll create and release the final plan. At that point, Lyft will conduct door-to-door notifications to adjacent property owners to inform them of station installations and record any concerns that might come up. And even after stations are installed, we will continue to monitor and take feedback. So if any concerns arise, operational concerns, we can coordinate for any follow-up actions. So now we will move on to the last portion of the presentation, and we will review the draft plan sites. And as mentioned previously, this first phase of installation will be from 155th Street, to 184th Street. I also wanted to note that the draft plan presentation is available online at our website at newyorkcity.gov/bikeshare under the Maps and Plans tab for easier viewing. So now I'll review the draft plan sites more closely. So the next 3 slides are close-up maps from 155th Street to 184th Street. So please bear with me and I will just list out each location. And then there will be time at the end to talk about any questions for any particular sites. And then to review the symbology on the map, the orange squares represent roadbed locations. The light blue triangles indicate a station that's planned on the sidewalk along the curb line. And the dark blue indicates that it's a sidewalk station along the fence line or a building line, sorry. Okay, so I will start on the southeast corner of the map. And so I can also point them out with my mouse if you're able to see that. So we have a station plan for the west side of St. Nicholas Avenue, south of 157th Street. And that it will be a sidewalk station along the curb line. We have a sidewalk station, maybe I keep getting a pop-up, sorry about that. Have a station plan for the east side of Amsterdam Avenue, south of West 156th Street, also on the sidewalk, but along the building line there. Moving west, we have a station on the south side of West 157th Street, west of Edward Morgan Place, and that is a roadbed station. And then, as I'm sure you're familiar, there's street improvement project along much of this area along Riverside. And so we will be coordinating 2 stations in this area, following further coordination with community board and residents and other stakeholders for that project. And so moving north to Broadway, on the east side of Broadway, south of West 160th Street, we have a sidewalk station planned along the curb line. Moving east to the south side of West 159th Street, west of Edgecombe Avenue, there is a sidewalk station planned for the curb line. Moving north to West 160th Street, east of St. Nicholas Avenue, roadbed station planned there. And then moving north to the west side of St. Nicholas Avenue, north of West 162nd Street, sidewalk station planned along the fence there. On the south side of, in the north side of West 163rd Street, west of Edgecombe, a roadbed station planned. And the last one on this slide, a sidewalk station along the fence line planned for the north side of West 163rd, east of Riverside Drive. All right, now moving to the next slide, we can start at the southwest corner. We have a sidewalk station planned for the curb line on the south side of West 165th Street, east of Fort Washington Avenue. And then a sidewalk station planned on the curb line for the west side of Broadway, south of West 165th Street. Moving north to Mitchell Square, we have a station planned for a roadbed station planned for the west side of St. Nicholas Avenue, north of West 166th Street. Moving east to Edgecombe, a roadbed station planned for the east side of Edgecombe Avenue, north of West 167th Street. And moving west, sidewalk station planned along the building on the east side of Amsterdam Avenue, north of West 167th Street. And then moving west, we have a station installed that was coordinated along with Columbia Presbyterian, and this is the station I'm sure you're all familiar with on the south side of West 169th Street, west of Fort Washington Avenue. Moving north to the south side of West 171st Street, west of St. Nicholas Avenue, we have a roadbed station planned. And then moving to High Bridge Park, we have a station planned for the roadbed on the east side of Amsterdam Avenue, south of West 172nd Street. And then final station on this map is a sidewalk station planned for the curb line on the east side of Fort Washington Avenue, south of West 173rd Street. And then now we're at the northern portion of the area. So I will start at the southeast part of the map. We have a sidewalk station planned along the fence line on the east side of Amsterdam, south of West 175th Street. Moving west, roadbed station planned for the east side of Wadsworth Avenue, north of West 175th Street. Another roadbed station planned for Cabrini Boulevard along the median there, north of West 177th Street. Moving north, station planned on the roadbed station on the north side of West 180th Street, east of Fort Washington Avenue. Then moving towards the east side, we have a station planned for the west side, a sidewalk station planned on the west side of Wadsworth, south of West 179th Street. Another sidewalk station planned on the east side of Audubon, south of West 179th. Moving to the park again on, we have a station planned on the east side of Amsterdam, north of West 180th Street along the sidewalk. And then going back west, a station planned on the east side of on Wadsworth Avenue, north of West 183rd Street along the sidewalk. And then the final station for this draft plan is the roadbed on the west side of Fort Washington, north of West 183rd. And then I think actually the last one is on the east side of Cabrini Boulevard, north of West 181st Street. And so that's what, those are the draft plan sites. And so now we're available to take any questions on the Citi Bike program or any sites in particular that you may want a little bit more elaboration. But thank you for joining us and for listening to the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mabel. That's a lot of information. I imagine that some of the questioners will want you to sort of pitch to one, one of the three. I think you had three different maps, so we'll do the best we can. I am going to ask.
Could Mabel stop sharing her screen? Because then people will be able to see my clock when I hold it up.
Well, although I think we might need the screen. I can see you, Jim. So actually, let's see if this works because I've got you on my grid. But I'll let you know if I lose you. So first I'll take questions and feedback from the committee. We are gonna try to be pretty strict about 2 minutes per comment. And if I could, let me just see. I think we have, and I'm sorry that I'm not, I don't know the order, but Omar, do you want to kick off in terms of questions?
Yep, no problem. The first question I have is, because Northern Manhattan is the hilliest portion of Manhattan, will there be an adequate amount of electric city bikes offered up here? Meaning a proportionally higher amount than there is in the rest of Manhattan, because those are limited in the rest of Manhattan, because certain parts of Manhattan only have a slight slope versus up here, you can see that there's a big gradient difference when you go from, say, Fort Washington and 100 and, well, yeah, Fort Washington and 190 and Broadway and 190. That's a very big difference in grade. So that's my first question. Then my second question is, there's 3 different types of installations that were shown on the map. Can you walk us through what are the differences between those? Meaning specifically, which one of those dock stations actually removes parking spots? Because that's the biggest kicker for our neighborhood, is anything that threatens parking spots.
So I can start off with that first questions about e-bikes.
Yep.
So for e-bikes, Lyft plans to add more. Right now, there's about a couple hundred e-bikes out in the system. Lyft plans to add, by their count, thousands of more e-bikes into the system by the end of the summer. The e-bikes naturally just ebb and flow from, one part of the system to another part of the system. But we can make sure to tell Lyft that the board requested that there might be some additional rebalancing of those e-bikes, especially in somewhere that's as hilly as Washington Heights and Inwood.
Yes, thank you. That'd be one of the high priorities, that they continue to replenish e-bikes at a higher rate up here because of the disparity in the neighborhood in terms of height difference and elevation gain.
Okay. And then the question about the parking, who's going to take that?
Yeah, so I can quickly talk about that. So I'm just going back to previous slide to just show. So the squares are the roadbed locations, and the triangles are the sidewalk locations for the map. We currently have 13 roadbed sites. Sorry if I think I'm remembering correctly, and the remainder are sidewalk sites in this area, with 2 stations still waiting to be determined. The 2 stations for the area under, with the Riverside Street Improvement Project there.
Right, and Mabel, if I may, I did want to just underscore a point that you made about the difference in how we, we divided the sites here. Omar, for the majority of stations that we have planned, we have 30 that are proposed for this portion of CB12. The majority of them are planned for the sidewalk and in spaces that do not remove parking, because that was absolutely something that DOT is aware of, that it's a priority and very important to the community board. And so we just wanted to make sure that we balanced your needs as well as the needs to create a meaningful network of bike share stations.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Ebenezer, do you mind? We have two people that need to be promoted. Kiana Diaz promoted to panelist, as well as one of the phone numbers, 347, that begins 347-461. If you could take care of that, I would be most appreciative.
I just heard from Juana Luna that she wants to be in some position where she will be able to speak at some point.
Oh, of course. No, we will absolutely. I'm sorry. I should have said that more specifically. Once we hear from the board members, we will move on to the attendees, and we will get you unmuted and ready to talk when we get there. So thank you for that reminder.
We have
Okay.
James next.
So yeah, Jim, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of, well, I have a question and then I want to jump on top of exactly what Omar was talking about. Because of the topography of our area, we actually probably have fewer parking spaces than other areas. I never did an exact thing. So our parking, spaces are contested, let's put it that way. And I see in the immediate area of where I live, which is on Cabrini, there are 3 bike stations that will be, in the street, or whatever you want to call them. And I presume they will remove parking spaces, and there will be much anger about that. So, and the 3 I'm specifically talking about are there's sort of a triangle south of Bennett Park, the W in Bennett Park, the E at 180 First and Cabrini, and then the one at 180th and Fort Wash. Again, if I were, and I didn't time myself, shame on me, but I'm going to stop as soon as I'm done. Our criterion up here is we don't want any parking spaces removed, period. Because anywhere you remove them, people will be furious. And this is not a good time. Of course, this is actually going to happen soon. This is not a good time to get people furious. People are pretty cranky at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. I just had sort of 1.5 questions. Just on that Mitchell Square location, that is presumes that the DOT work relative to going to one direction rather than two-way in that section around Mitchell Park happens. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that station is presuming that that's then a one-way street with all the changes that were approved.
So that station is planned to be along the bike lane on St. Nicholas Avenue on the west side there. So it may be a little bit unfamiliar.
So I'm happy to jump in here. And I think Debbie, your office might be right across the street from that location on St. Nick and 166th Street. What we're thinking here is exactly what Mabel had mentioned, is that the station would be installed in the roadbed in the parking lane, adjacent to the bike lane, closer to 166th Street. But our field staff did find, and we all know that there's the ongoing construction that's happening closer to 168th Street. And we can continue to coordinate with DDC to see if there's any way, once construction wraps, to see if we could utilize that space and decrease the potential parking taken in the area.
No, my point's a different one, which is that DOT proposed all these changes to that area. And on that block, it's creating a lot more room to do things because it would be going one direction. So it's adding like 20 parking spots, whatever. So all I was saying was like, this is contemplated for the new world of that block, right? Not the old world.
Yes, and we do coordinate with our other units as well.
Right. Okay. And then the other thing that I think might be helpful, and then we'll open it up to the other board members, is at least for me, is, you talk about sort of the flexibility of these installs are done in a way that if there are problems and it did need to be removed, that it could be. Can you give us examples of like when that's had to happen and, and what were the circumstances? Because I think sometimes people feel like, well, you do something and our experiences is it gets really hard to undo things. So if if there was an issue, like what's an example of what that's looked like and what were the circumstances?
Yeah, so as you know, mentioned in the presentation, any construction projects that come up that might impact the footprint of the station, whether it be on the sidewalk or the roadbed, we coordinate to relocate the station for that construction. And in most cases, the station does go back to the planned, or sorry, to the permanent location where it started. Other cases that we've shifted stations, if there have been operational issues that arise, if issues with trash collection, or if there has been anything that the neighboring building has like highlighted as something damaging their operations, and DOT reviews those, and in those cases, in some of those cases, we have been able to change the locations there.
All right,
Or adjust based on needs as well.
thank you.
Debbie, before you go on, I did ask a question and it wasn't answered. How many parking spaces do these inroad things remove?
So
Or
we don't
take
have
away?
the exact number of parking spaces, but we do, there are 13 stations, roadbed stations planned for the area. And their average, for the whole area, the average station size will be 25 docks. But we don't have the parking take.
Well, how many parking spaces is 25 docks? This is a fixed length. How much is it?
So we, each dock is about 2.5 feet. So you can do the math.
So,
I think we do have some of those average numbers already worked out. So I think, as Mabel said, right, the average station size would be approximately 25 docks across this area of CB12. And that pretty much equates to, I think, approximately 65 to 70 feet. And that depends on whether or not there are utilities in the road to bridge or whatnot. So the station could be longer, but there are situations and sites where we are able to decrease the station size, you know, if there aren't any utilities on the ground that we need to quote unquote bridge. I do also want to say that Jim and Debbie and Omar, we hear you that parking take is definitely a very serious issue across the district. And we tried very hard to balance parking take and, you know, utilize the available and feasible sidewalk spaces that we did identify. But parking removal here for city bike expansion into CB12, it, you know, can't be avoided. And so we really tried where we could to find feasible sites that didn't remove parking. And where we can look to, you know, continue that when we expand further north into CB12.
all right, I guess that would beg one more question from me. So let's say you described a situation where something didn't work out and you needed to move it, remove it, whatever. But what happens if a particular station doesn't end up that utilized? So, because 25 docks sounds like a lot to me. Like, is there ever a scenario where that 25 dock station becomes a 12 dock station?
So the minimum station size that we have is 19 docks. Operationally, we can't have shorter stations than that. And as sorry, okay, I don't know if I had some. And then as the system grows, some station the patterns for ridership changes, and so some things that might be at the northern portion of the service area currently, once we start expanding northern, we might see shifts in the usage patterns for those stations. And typically it is a little more challenging to rebalance the stations on the edges of the service area. So, as things grow and as things change, those ridership patterns change a little bit, and those are things that we're monitoring on an ongoing basis. And so it's hard to say one way or another. I guess what I'm saying is a station is successful given like maybe a short amount of time frame. But so as the system grows, we learn how stations behave and how people behave. And
Okay. I see
Oh.
Gerard.
Yeah.
Well, two questions. One, I would think it would be quite possible to actually make some kind of a visual footprint, a little graphic for each of these locations so that non-technical people, just regular residents that would be curious and would like to understand what you are proposing, certainly in terms of parking spaces loss. I think that's a very doable thing and actually, should certainly be part of your submission for consideration. And secondly, would it be possible for us to have reporting on a monthly basis with the technology? I would guess, presume that you'll be able to track just how much bikes are being used up here, so that if the use, and as kind of Debbie was alluding, in the cases where if it doesn't really require a lot of bikes, that a reconsideration could take place, because as Jim was saying, we are in a very parking stressed neighborhood, and people are really shouldn't lose spots if there isn't the value there. So I think that's up to you guys to show the value, the added value, and the value over time. I think that would be very appropriate. Thank you.
Thanks. Omar, wait, Jim, do you also have a second round question?
No,
Hand up.
but I do have a comment. I did some calculations. It turns out parking spaces are required to be 18 feet long, like the distance between what used to be parking meters. And that means 65 feet is 3.6 of these spaces, or basically 4 spaces. So each of these bays will take away presumably about 4 parking spaces. I did that calculation. Thank you.
All right. Omar, did you have another question?
Yeah. For me, it was more common than anything else. I've been actually a Citi Bike member since 2013, since this thing first launched. And the only reason why I didn't renew after that was because there was no reach to where I lived. So I was actually kind of double dipping into paying for a Metro card and a Citi Bike, and it just monetarily didn't make any sense. But now with this expansion coming up here, what this at least allows for me, especially in this environment where I don't know if I can trust going back into a train system anytime soon, like literally anytime soon. And as soon as we get called back into the office, Citi Bike is probably going to be the primary way that I actually come from home to work and back. So this is coming at a good time, considering that all the issues that we're having with the MTA, the unknown with COVID, and kind of trying to avoid being put into a situation where we're constantly being sandwiched into an environment and being shepherded downtown. This gives another opportunity where you can actually do it, outside and not have to do public transportation in a different way. So that's just my comment on this in terms of what the new world might look like. It's welcomed, at least on my end, it's welcomed. Now, the challenge is, again, balancing the parking issue, because the one question I had is, if there's a roadside dock, what prevents that roadside dock from being converted to a sidewalk dock? Like, what prevents that process, just for everyone's kind of FYI?
Yeah, so there we have different technical siting criteria, and there are minimum sidewalk widths that that the sidewalk needs to be a minimum width for it to be viable for a station, to keep that ADA accessibility. Other factors are utilities, or like gas or water utilities on a sidewalk that we cannot place a station over. And so we need to keep access to those clear. And other factors are tree pits that prevent us from installing stations or other street furniture.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I think we are ready to.
Can I please ask a question, Debbie?
Oh, yeah, and then, okay, so Bruce and then Gerard, it looks like you have a round 2, but Bruce hasn't gone, so I'm gonna give him the first one.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mabel,
I can wait
Mabel,
till Bruce asks his question, Debbie, but I was also hoping to respond to a few of the other questions that just wrapped up. So
Mabel, can you go back to 157 and Morgan Place, please? So that looks like a roadbed dock, correct?
Correct.
It is on the southwest corner of 157 and Morgan Place, correct?
Yeah, on the south side of 157th west of Morgan. Yeah.
So from the corner down 19 feet or 19 spaces on the roadbed.
Say it again, sorry? Can you repeat that?
On the roadbed from the corner of 157 and Morgan south to whatever the length of the dock is, correct?
So it's actually going on 157th Street from the corner with Morgan Place west to.
So I have to say, that's a really, really busy corner, and there's a bodega there, and we're having issues with that traffic corner being problematic to begin with. So can we please discuss this offline at some point?
Yeah, we can definitely, we can talk more about this.
Thank you.
And Debbie, I'm not sure if you're hoping to consolidate all of the comments and questions for us to answer as a group, but that might be, just a good way to get all of the feedback to DOT.
Right. I will consolidate. And then you should also feel free to tell me like what's worked best.
Absolutely.
At this moment. Because some people are gonna then hear about the meeting and couldn't be, look at this. And so we will have I'm sure, a decent amount of consolidation. So Gerard, why don't you do your round 2, and then Jennifer, maybe then if you want to, wrap up before we go to some more board member questions.
Great, thank you.
Great. So I definitely would appreciate if those 2 questions I had, one about the parking space loss assessment, if that could be included in a future submission, just again for transparency, give people some idea of the total loss of parking spaces. And also if it's possible to issue a monthly use report. I think with the technology that probably is very doable. And last but not least, in the post-COVID, it was mentioned the transit system. Now they learned after they made a lot of mistakes that they actually had to clean those trains. And it's pretty significant effort to make sure that those are being tended to. What is Citi Bikes going to do? And what methods and means and practices are you going to put in place? You're obviously putting bikes out on the streets, and that's a COVID breeding ground. So how are you going to protect the public or assure that the public be put in presented with information to protect themselves? That's a pretty big exposure based on what we know now. So what are you all going to do with that?
Yeah, so Lyft has, already started a lot of these efforts to sanitize the bikes more frequently and clean high contact areas more frequently every time the bikes are at a depot or when their operations folks are at stations. They're also making efforts to sanitize stations more frequently near medical facilities. But it is, an ongoing process to continuously keep that clean the areas.
I think we need more than that. I think
absolutely. Whoa. Time out.
Oh, okay.
So, because our back and forths are starting to add up to a lot of time. And I do want to say it's not actually, another thing that's coming out is like transmissions might not actually relate to services. So let's take the health issue, because I think that applies to that applies to everything. This applies to program, it applies to everything we do. But let's put that one aside. And in the interest of time, just the other two parts about, that's an excellent question. I had it too that Gerard asked about the, how do we track utilization and how much can be shared once, this is going, and can that be done monthly? How does that work? And then when we might be able to get more specificity on the parking spot loss.
And Deb, I would just want metrics to see if they're going to answer the question. I'd like to see metrics, not a general thing, like,
Right.
but specifics.
So I'm happy to start, and you can, feel free to add a little bit more color afterwards. To respond to data and usage statistics, monthly reporting, Citi Bike actually already covers that. So I believe, is it monthly or quarterly reporting that gets posted onto their website, Jesse and Mabel?
It is both monthly and quarterly.
Excellent. So Gerard, you can go to the Citi Bike website. That's been published for some time now, so you could actually look back on archives, do a little bit of, research, and, folks have really taken to creating and doing creative projects with the data that's available on the Citi Bike website. And in terms of the exact parking take across the board, when we do come to transportation committees to present on our draft plans, our final, surveys aren't yet complete. That's particularly the case now because of COVID, and we don't have, our field staff out completing those formal surveys just yet. But in a typical case, we start this outreach process with our draft plan presentation to the board, and then we have Lyft, our partners, move forward with, confirming if all of these sites, work, or if any adjustments need to be made. So while we don't have those specifics just yet, it is something that we take into account when we come with average station sizes, just to share and give you kind of a general idea of what you'll be seeing across the board. And I think it was Jim who did a little bit of calculation about the average, I think it was 18 feet per parking space. DOT actually takes a more generous, uses a more generous dimension for parking spaces, and for, passenger vehicles, we use 20 feet for that calculation here. If we're actually looking at the screen, I know there's only 3 roadbed sites that are shown on this particular map, but as you can see, there's a network plan where the station is approximately 3 to 5 minutes away, or 3 to 5 blocks away from its next station. That's something that we really try to take into account. But you'll see that the majority of stations here are planned on the sidewalk. And we tried to kind of disperse the network to ensure that users are able to still have meaningful service and reliable service across the board.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Daryl Cochran, Ebenezer, have you been able to get Daryl's telephone line promoted so he can speak?
I'll try to promote him. I don't think Ebenezer.
Thanks, Chanel. So that's, shoot, that is, sorry, I've got the fire thing going off in my house. Chanel, that's 347-461.
In
the hallway there.
All right,
okay. So, I'm sorry, what's the number again?
Sorry, it's 347 and it ends in 464.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yep, you can.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I had a few questions, and before I do, can you go to the northernmost slide, please? And my general question is really about ADA access. And I know you have a number of sidewalk stations. And can you tell me how many, inches that's leaving left on the sidewalk for passing?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, so when we put station on the sidewalk, we maintain at least 6 feet of clearance, and requirements for ADA accessibility are 4 feet, and so we are giving more space for that.
Okay, thank you. And also, I see on the right next to Bennett Park, the top orange one, that is along Fort Washington Avenue, correct?
Correct.
So how far away from 183rd Street will those stations start? Because both go in opposite direction and meet at Fort Washington. So those folks going east need to, have the sight line of southbound traffic.
Yeah, so I think it cut out a little bit towards the end, so I may not have heard everything. But we try to site stations as close to the intersection as possible, starting after crosswalks or stop bars, to maintain sight lines for vehicles and for pedestrians.
So you don't think this will obstruct the view of folks trying to turn there?
I can't remember the particulars of this station, but we cite them so that according to criteria so that the view is not obstructed at any intersection.
Okay. And lastly,
Daryl.
it's one last, it's real quick.
So quick.
It speaks to Omar's question as well. I think you said the longest time frame is 30 minutes to utilize a bike, right?
So that's for certain passes. So for the day passes and the 3-day passes, in the single rides, it's 30 minutes. And for the annual memberships, it's 45 minutes.
And I just wonder, because there will be a lot of people who will want to be commuting, and from our neighborhood even to Midtown for, a moderately experienced cyclist, that may take more than 30 minutes. So if someone wants to travel all the way downtown, like say to Chamber Street or something, that's going to take a while. So are these bikes being calibrated to take that into account and have a longer time?
So the system is meant for these, shorter trips around the neighborhood or, connecting to other modes of transportation. But if you are an annual member, have a membership, you are able to, dock a bike if you're nearing the end of your time limit, and then undock again, or in some cases able to go to stations and to extend the time limits so that if you wanted to take a longer ride, that you would be able to do so.
Ebenezer, Chanel, I needed Kiana Diaz on put in the panelist, and somehow Maria Luna fell back to attendee status. In terms of raised hands, if I could get some raised hands or a voice from any board members, because I'm just seeing 2 attendees, Jerry Culligan and Demetris Kutumbis, and Jack Fogel with raised hands. So if anybody, Bill, gotcha.
Debbie, I don't have access to raise my hand, so a minute.
Oh, okay. Isidro, go ahead.
So Isidro Medina from the Washington Heights Business Improvement District. Thank you, Debbie, for putting this together. I think it's necessary for the community. I have worked very well with Lyle. Lyle has been a partner up in City 12, and I'm happy that this is coming to Northern Manhattan. Because, you know, a couple of reasons. We have a higher obesity rate in our community. We also have a high rate of asthma rate. So I think that this can help in the long term. I do have some concerns for parking. This has been hammered down like many different times, but I just want to make sure that it hits home. Every time that we lose a parking spot, it's going to affect the small businesses. So Northern Manhattan is unique in the fact that we have a unique community where businesses make up a really good portion of what defines a community. And we hope that DOT keeps this in mind in making sure that space parking loss is at the lowest level. Because again, anytime that we lose 3 or 4 parking spots, our small businesses will lose big time. So I'm glad that this was brought over like many times, and I will just bring it over again. I think that there should be also some type of way for people that do not have credit card could make use of these bikes. I know that, you know, this is a technology, but we do have a lot of old, you know, mature people who might not have credit cards, and they might be left out. So I'm a little bit concerned about how you might be addressing that issue for accessibility purposes, where some of the members of our residents might not have access to a credit card. So how will you address that?
Yeah, so I'll let Jesse, my colleague Jesse, take this question. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, and that's something that we hear constantly. Lyft is trying to work out, you know, a system that doesn't require a credit or debit card. Right now, unfortunately, you do need one, but Lyft does see that need, especially for the unbanked, to give access to them to bike share. They do see the need of this sort of not, you know, you don't need a credit card or a debit card. Right now, you know, there's not much we can say, but I will make sure to tell Lyft, you know, every time we hear this, whenever we're at stakeholders or other community boards, this is something that comes up constantly. So I'll make sure to make a point that, you know, again, Community Board 12 in Manhattan had an issue or had a concern with unbanked access to city banks for those who aren't unbanked.
Yes,
So thank you.
I'm just concerned that if you have had this issue all the times, that we're going to be adding up to be one of those. We don't want to be one of those. I want to make sure that my people have full access to these bikes, because you know what? We have suffered a great deal. Forget about the pandemic, which has taken a lot of, you know, number of lives.
Okay.
But the fact is that this community cannot be neglected. And if you're going to tell us that, you know, you're going to tell Lyft to see what they do, no, we need to get something done.
All right, Isidro, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to move on because we've still got a bunch of people and we're over our 2 minutes on that portion. So Jesse, yeah, if you can just keep close to us on that question. All right, so I've got the list on the public attendees of Jerry Culligan, Dimitri Katumbas, Jack Fogel, and Phil Bethel. I think Juana, if she wants to be in on this, maybe Maria, you could just let me know. But why don't we just start? Jerry, you want to kick off? You've got 2 minutes. Oh, sorry. Chanel, are you doing this for me? Are you getting people in a position where they can talk? Starting with Jerry Culligan, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I think you're okay, Jerry.
Okay. the first thing is there are only 4 stations around the hospital, which means that there's 100 bikes for the hospital. All you have to do is to walk to the corner of 165th Street and Fort Washington, where the people who work at the hospital leave their bikes, and they leave almost 60 bikes there right now. You need more stations there. Secondly, about that, you need to actually put it on Fort Washington Avenue and on Haven Avenue where the people are. I think you need to reassess that. Secondly, you have a station on the southeast corner of 165th Street by Broadway. That's a pretty narrow sidewalk. I think you need it across the street, but I may be wrong. I also noticed in 162nd Street and Broadway, there seems to be a hole of no stations at all, and I'm not quite sure why that seems to be. Riverside Oval you have as a pending. You need to be a little more specific when that comes out to the people in that area. And Lyle, I think you really need to reassess the parking going to the center of the street so they can do the city bikes along the sidewalk, as I suggested. And the final one is the 166th Street and St. Nicholas station. That's in a landmarked block. It's by the library. Put it in front of the library, which is on the street. And I think that's the change that you should need to do there. That's it.
Okay. All right. Demetrius. So Chanel, let me just give you the order. We've got Demetrius next, and then Jack Fogel, and then Phil Bethel. So if you want to do 2 at a time, and if you know you're up next, no funny stuff on the hot mic.
Hello. My name is Dimitri. I've lived on 187th and Cabrini for the past 4 years. I just want to thank DOT for finally expanding into our stations, and I see it as a thing that's been a long time due. I guess my question is the selection of the planned city bike station locations going to be complemented with additional bicycle infrastructure upgrades, such as protected bike lanes? Because I feel like infrastructure also comes in hand with the expansion of the system, because you're basically going to make it safer for so many other people to use bicycles as a form of transportation and actually achieve better utilization of your system as well. So yeah, is there like physical bicycle infrastructure that will go in place with the expansion of the city bike system in our neighborhoods to provide a safer experience for our?
Thank you, Demetrius. So, you know, as we expand City Bike, we're always looking for additional opportunities to expand bicycle infrastructure, not only in Manhattan, but throughout the 5 boroughs. Last year, the mayor released a Green Wave initiative, which is a plan to expand protected infrastructure all throughout the 5 boroughs. So yes, as we go forward with expansion, we are always looking towards adding more protected lanes. That, you know, any protected lanes will come through the Manhattan Borough's Commissioner's Office and through the Manhattan Community Board 12 before any of that discussion actually gets put in the ground. But the answer is yes, but there are no sort of concrete plans right now.
I just would like to urge for like.
Okay, Dimitri, I'm sorry. We've got to just stop it there, and then.
Sure, thank you.
But and then of course, as you know, anytime that kind of thing gets proposed, you know, to come back here to traffic and transportation. I'm sorry, we are just getting a little backed up on time. Jack Fogel next, and Phil, and then Maria. Don't forget, if you or Juana want to say anything, just let me. We're coming back to you.
Good evening to new friends and old. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little soft.
Okay, I'll speak up. Could you go to the map with 158th Street? Thank you. Well, yes, perfect. Okay, what I wanted to bring up is I missed last month's meeting, but it still ties in with today's topic and certainly because of the map. To introduce myself, I've lived in the neighborhood for 38 years. I live at River Arts Apartments, which is Riverside Drive West between 158 and 160th. And something that became, I'm currently the resident manager. So I have a constituency of about 500 people in my building. And what has been very pronounced during this experience is ambulances, EMS. Calls to EMS, I feel that we could actually save a life if we could address the signage. And I know that the community board was looking at this at the May 4th, and you're looking at, you know, realigning traffic study in this neighborhood cohort. What happens is every time I call the EMS, they will tell me they send the ambulance to Riverside Drive and 158th Street. And for all of you who know our neighborhood, that is a dead end street to the West Side Highway. On the map that the EMS is using and the expediters, they see 158th Street intersecting with Riverside Drive West. But it delays the delivery of that ambulance by 10 minutes at least for them to find themselves, because they can't find our building because they're down on the West Side Highway, have to reverse their course, drive around. If we could solve this simply by Riverside Drive West, the sign doesn't actually say Riverside Drive West. It does on the map, and that's what I'm trying to address, which is good. But since you're making these changes and changing the streets, what we call the lower drive and the upper drive, which are the northwest streets. If you notice, the upper drive goes from 158th Street to 165th, which is, you don't want to lead an ambulance there because they won't be able to get to Riverside Drive until they get to 165th Street, which is again out of the way. If they take the lower drive, what we call the lower drive, then they could get to Riverside. But you are changing that to a one-way street south. So ambulances would not be able to get to Riverside Drive West if they took that.
Okay,
if you would just change the street sign to Riverside Drive either south or Riverside Drive east, then the ambulance will be able to get to Riverside Drive West, because they could be directed to take Riverside Drive south.
All right,
to
I'm just going to jump in here because we're.
All right, but please save a life. Please just save a life.
You're not letting me talk now. It's my turn.
I'm done.
Jennifer and Lyle, I assume you've got notes on that. Can you connect? That was Mr. Fogel?
Correct.
Can we connect you with Mr. Fogel and then you can grab your signage team and all that and see?
Yeah,
if
we can
can
take a look at that. That's no problem.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. And Phil Bethel now. Bethel. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you to DOT for presenting the plan and continue to work on this expansion through the pandemic. As a City Bike member and Uptown resident, I'm excited for the system to finally come to the neighborhood. 2 comments. I would love to see a denser station network if possible, given that we're at the edge of the network here. And I do worry that stations are either going to be full or empty. And if you arrive at a station to find it full, you're going to now have to walk 3 to 5 blocks to find a station with bikes. So denser station network would be great. And I would also like to push back a bit on the notion that everyone in this neighborhood is obsessed with parking. Approximately 75% of the households in CP12 don't own a car. And as one of those households, I would really like to see city bike stations located on the roadbed actually, as opposed to on our already crowded sidewalks where possible. But thank you to DOT and thank you to the community board for this forum. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment and your brevity. Maria or Juana, did you want to say something? And if so, if you just want to unmute, you are a panelist, so you should be able to do that yourself.
Yes, this is can't have people yelling.
Okay, so this was a lot of information. I think people heard the URL where they could, find the information. Just in terms of procedure, I think we got a lot of notes and we will share that with DOT, but if people could email Ebenezer, our district manager, and with something in the subject line, Citibank expansion input, and then he will get those to me and I'll consolidate feedback for DOT, and DOT, you just let me know when do you need feedback consolidated and to you.
So Mabel, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking about 4 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
Debbie, I just want to read out some of these Q&A so they get recorded, because there's some comments here that people were not able to call in and say. So I've just been reviewing those, and I just want to bring those on the record, because if not, they're going to get lost. I'm seeing one here that says, from Karen Green. She says there's 3 sites in your northern map. West side are all representing loss of parking spaces. West 180th Street between Fort Washington and Broadway is consistently blocked. So loss of space here is unacceptable. That's Karen's comment. Adam Fran asks, when will the discussion for the northern part of the district above 184th Street occur? And I think that's a 2-part question. When will DOT return? And when will DOT also begin to take suggestions from the community for that section, or if it has already occurred? So I'm allowed DOT to answer that.
Yeah, so for our public outreach, we presented an entire community board-wide map. So people were commenting on both the southern and northern half. But when we come back to the community board with the northern half, we're gonna have another presentation just like this, and another period that people can comment on those northern half stations.
Great, thank you. Victor asks, he says, good evening. How's the demand?
Okay.
You there?
Excuse me.
Panelists, you can see and everything.
Maria,
Maria, just hold up.
I'm sorry. I didn't, but I need to speak.
But can we?
Okay.
We're gonna
just
come
give us
back
10
to
more
you, Maria.
seconds.
Victor asks, good evening. How's the demand for city bikes now that the city's preparing to reopen? Have the plans changed because of that? Do you have any numbers? He's a reporter for the Bedford Bowery local news website. So this is a question that Victor is asking.
Okay. All right. So I will let Victor take that
DOT.
offline with DOT.
Yep.
Thank you for reading those out. Maria, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I was getting a little antsy. Anyway, I think these plans are really exciting. I am going to focus in 157th Street by Edward Morgan. Have they considered placing these bikes against the little park, the Inca Payan, which is between Broadway and Morgan Place, as opposed to on the sidewalk across the street? That is, a very complicated corner, as Bruce mentioned, and I think that maybe they should reconsider the site. Now, another thing is that I believe that with on 168th Street and Broadway, we are talking about that aisle that is between opposite Coogan, where Coogan's used to be, between 168th Street and 169th Street, where the A, C, and number 1 train, those stations, so the bikes are going to be on that particular island there, or where? So you need clarification about that. 168th Street, Broadway, San Nicolas, and 169, I guess. But my thing is that I think they should consider, I know, maybe Bruce can, we can take a look at that, because if they the bikes will go against the little park between, but it's called in Catania Payan, where the bus number 6 comes through from Broadway. Make a left. I think there's no space to place the bikes there, and I think that should be considered. Also, I think that on the upper area by Cabrini Boulevard, Jim, is that corner where the La Chelle restaurant is?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
where
in
the
front
bus
of
is there?
Kayla. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
isn't that making a right turn for the vehicles going downhill? It's going to make a difference there. I am all for bikes, but let me just tell you, Eli say something about being that we have a community of obese people, including myself. That's why I go to Planet Fitness to go and try to lose some weight. No bikes. Not everybody is able to rent for $3 for an hour or whatever, in combination with subway fare. And the elderly people, we have to consider the elderly people in our community that cannot afford, they cannot use bikes to, as a means of transportation. So, you have to think about that. It's not just only young people. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Maria. And then, so I know DOT's heard that, but clearly a lot of, 157th and Edward Morgan concern, as well as the other observation. And then just let us know when, and as things develop, when you'll have more specifics about the pending information at Riverside Oval. So with that, time for us to move on. I always have so many intentions of moving us a little more quickly. Thank you to the DOT team. Lyle, if you could stick through the MTA portion, I'd be grateful. I know it's getting late, so, but just because I do want to just touch on a little old business moment. But anyway, and of course, anybody from DOT that wants to stay with us as well. We'd like that. But with that, Howard Levine has been so patient in hanging in with us. And
DOT should stop sharing their content, please.
Oh, right. Yikes. Wow. All right. So Howie, you should unmute yourself. In part for Richard Allman's inspiration, but also just from the whole committee. We've had so much going on with the MTA and the COVID moment, and on a few different dimensions. And so we asked Howie to spend a little time with us and just sort of update us, give us a view to sort of what comes next, as we start to, some people getting ready to go back to work and all of that. And also we've had big changes like the cleaning regimen and the closing of the stations, between 1 and 5. So Howie, I know that's a little amorphous, but if you could just give us a general overview of sort of what's been happening, how it has been going, with the changes that you've had to make, and sort of what comes next, we'd be appreciative.
Sure. And just, I hope everyone is safe and well with everything happening in the city and the country right now. I just want to say that up front. But just to start off with some of the broader changes that I think most people are aware of, but have been big changes for the MTA and New York City Transit since I've last met with the board. We're still running essential service at this time, which is intended for essential workers and essential errands. I think, as most people are aware, and as you mentioned, since May 6th, the subway service has been suspended between 1 and 5 for disinfecting and cleaning of our train cars and our stations. And that's going to continue, I think, even past May. And phase 1 reopening of the city is projectors. We've been boosting bus service to have kind of an enhanced bus service schedule that's 76% in overnight trips and 150% just the number of buses that we have active on the road during that time. And additionally, for essential workers who need to get to work or get home during that 1 to 5 hour period, we've created the Essential Connector program, which is, if your ride is, not really possible, you can book a for-hire vehicle at no cost to yourself to get home or get to work during those hours. And you can do that online, you can do that over the phone. And then we also created an app for people to look at our service exclusively during those hours and figure out if they are eligible for that service and book it if they would like. Additionally, I guess the other biggest change would be that we require all customers to wear masks on all MTA services. And then we've implemented rear door boarding on buses, so customers don't have to interact with drivers and vice versa. Most recently, we announced that we are piloting hand sanitizer stations at certain of our subway stations for folks to use hand sanitizer. That's just a pilot that was starting today. Also recently, we've been piloting UV light technology in terms of cleaning trains and facilities. A little less intensive than ideally just a quicker process that might help us in terms of avoiding the closure, but still cleaning the with that technology that's being piloted. Because right now, at most terminal stations, what's happening is cars are being cleaned with disinfectant and cleaning solution, and additionally at yards where trains are laid up overnight as well. We've distributed 2.4 million masks to our employees and over 4.8 million gloves. We have antibody testing available for our employees. And on March 24th, we launched the quote temperature brigade to take employee temperatures before they enter work locations, in addition to putting up plexiglass and staggering work schedules so that there was less contact between employees as well, just to mitigate the spread. We've eliminated cash transactions with station agents. You can still make cash transactions at MetroCard machines in the system, just not with our station agents to avoid the contact of the cash. More locally, I think people are curious, our elevator replacement projects at 181st Street on the A train and 191st Street on the 1 train remain on schedule at this time. And I think, as most people are aware, the bus shuttles that we were running to help with service while those elevators are out are temporarily suspended, and that's been true for about a month now. We plan to resume those shuttles when the pandemic concludes and ridership returns, particularly at 191st Street on the 1. We're monitoring ridership and want to ensure there's not any crowding on the M3, which provides essentially the same service as the shuttle that is temporarily suspended. So with that, I will yield my time and take any questions.
Thank you, Howie. Sorry, let me restart my video. Let's see what we got going. Sorry, a little bit have a hash on my, okay. So anybody first from traffic and transportation? Yeah, sorry, I'm just not. Got two different things going. So I see, Gerard, do you have something, or is that your hand from before? And
yeah, I think that's his hand from before.
Okay, and all right, Richard Allman, take it.
All right, a first question. I saw a recent report that the disinfectants that MTA has been using on the trains didn't meet certain standards. And I wonder if you would speak to the metrics, how that's measured, and I guess the accuracy of the report, but it was certainly concerning to hear.
Sure. So I think part of that, I didn't see that same report. I will say that just in terms of the safety of riders, which I've received, so to be safely. Can you not hear me?
Very choppy.
Very
You're
choppy.
breaking up like you have a lousy internet connection.
Got it.
Watch out, Howie.
now?
I've been accused of this too.
It did just warn me that my internet connection is unstable. I'm not sure what that quite means, but
just
can you
what
hear
I
me
said
now?
it meant.
It means it's unstable.
It's a little better. Try it one more time.
So I was just going to say that in terms of the safety to customers of cleaning solutions and disinfecting solutions, that they're all EPA approved, and so that is kind of fully vetted there. But in terms of if they are ensuring that they are killing the virus and anything that may be on surfaces, I would have to look back at exactly how that was determined. And things like that, and get back to you, Richard. I don't know offhand what the methodology is there. I know we're piloting some things, but the cleaning solution seems to be more of an established procedure by now.
Run that information back to Debbie and get it out to us.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Richard. And just Howie, I know we've discussed it a little bit, but at the sort of outset of this, some concerns had bubbled up. And I haven't heard it again, but I just want to make sure you haven't heard it. Of when there was a switch to the rear boarding on buses that was sometimes leading to people who were trying to get on with a wheelchair or needed some additional assistance in boarding, not having access to the front where they needed to be, or not being seen, and not being able to board. And so if anybody on the committee has heard more about that, I haven't heard about it, but how has that gone? Is that the kind of thing, like, did you hear that kind of thing, and has that worked itself through? Or
Yeah.
Mary, do you have anything to say on that?
I sure do. Can you hear me?
We can.
I can hear you, Mary.
I had, an incident at the beginning of all this where I wasn't let on a bus. I had another incident on Thursday, and the lady who was driving the bus just absolutely refused to open the front door. I have a walker, as you know, and refused to, and was, sort of viciously pointing her thumb to the back of the bus. And I said to her, if you don't open the door, I'm going to report you. And she was, saying, go ahead, go ahead. She didn't care. She was very, very rude and unwilling to do anything to accommodate me at all. I have not put through that complaint yet. What is the best way to go about putting in that complaint?
I didn't catch that last bit, Mary.
What's the best way to handle that complaint? Who should I send it to?
Yeah. So first off, Mary, I'm really sorry to hear that that's happened to you twice, especially. It's the policy, and it's been the policy since we started early on, that our signage reflects that. You might have seen on the bus as well, Mary, that the front of the bus is still able to be used by people with disabilities or just who need it and request it. Not for the majority of customers, but for people who need it, that the front door is still available, and you can sit in the front of the bus closer to the driver. That's been the policy since the very beginning. When that happens, what is most helpful is to get the bus number. So every bus has like an individual number. Great.
I've got the bus number, time, the bus, all that stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's what you need. And if you want to just send it to Ebenezer to forward on to me, I can make sure that driver gets spoken with.
What's your info? Well, I can get your info.
Yeah, Yeah, I'll get stuff to you, Mary.
Send it to me, Debbie, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mary. So I've got,
The first, I just want to say, the first complaint is with the State Department of Human Rights. And that's pending a response from MTA also. Because that was such discrimination because I don't have a wheelchair, So, okay, thank you.
all right, thank you. So I've got Bruce, I've got Natalie Espino. Isidro, I'm assuming that's the old hand, but if it's a new hand, just wave if you want to say something.
I think that's
Okay.
a new one for Isidro.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm watching the hands as they're going up.
Oh, thank you, Omar. All right.
Yeah,
So
and
Bruce,
Natalie's been waiting actually. She's been waiting
All
for
right.
a while, so.
all right. So
Not sure
Natalie
how
and
you
then
wanna do it.
Bruce.
Yeah.
And then Isidro.
My question is quick, Howie. Thank you very much for the update. Is, to Mary's point, is dialing online, calling 311 another way to report a bus driver who's being difficult?
You certainly can. The number for us actually is 511. I believe you can submit concerns that way as well. But if I'm speaking with you and Mary, I know you, I trust you, and I want to make sure it's taken care of personally. So
Right, but it's simpler. Yeah, if I say to somebody 511 rather than call community board, Ebenezer, give them an email, so forth and so on.
Yeah, we're certainly not going to post, send your complaints to Ebenezer on every bus stop and things like that.
Thank you very much.
Of course, Bruce.
Sorry, Natalie, did you have something?
I did. I mean, I am happy to wait if other board members have questions. It's up to you.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. We'll get
All right,
there.
appreciate it. So, Howie, hi, good to see you. So my questions, I mean, along the lines of Mary's feedback, we have been getting that sort of feedback from across the borough. So if there's some way that the optics of that, of chains across, that front entrance, and then driver education, so that they know that it's not that they have the option to decline service, to deny service to the disabled. The other thing related, and channeling my inner Edith here, is as far as accessoride, under normal circumstances, whatever normal means nowadays, accessoride users are penalized for extended periods of not using the service. Is that being waived now? And how, and can that, if that's the case, can that be put on a banner on the landing webpage for paratransit?
So in terms of, first off, hi Natalie, also good to hear your voice. In terms of the accessoride issue, I don't know offhand. I can look into that and get back to you. I can't imagine that policy would remain in place during a time when accessoride users are a vulnerable population that is encouraged not to be traveling except for essential trips. So I can't imagine that would remain in place in the same way it normally does, but I will get back to you on that.
Thank you.
And in terms of the front door boarding for folks with disabilities, I mean, the response is the same. Is when this is seen, we want to know about it. We want to be able to take care of it and make sure those bus drivers are following this policy and letting all of our customers use the bus in the way that they need to. So let us know as you hear more of that. And whenever there's a bus number and a time and date, that is extremely helpful, and we can really specifically target the specific bus driver that might not be following this policy and discipline them if needed.
Will do.
Thank you, Natalie. Isidro?
Hi, Howie. Thank you all for the time and an update. Really Appreciate it. Very concerned about some of the buses in the Washington Heights area, particularly the 181st Street, San Nicolas, and Broadway, where on the bus stops, it's actually not accessible for any riders because of the back door, as you use it now, cannot be accessed because of a lot of street vendors who are already placed on the bus stops themselves. And they are risking, to some extent, the social distancing. But like Mary said, and this is a very common problem here, there's not as easy access for people with disability to the buses. And that's one, because they don't have the front door access, nor can they actually come out through the back quite easily because the congestion of the street vendors. So I don't know how, if you can address that for me.
So, sorry, I didn't. I think my internet is unstable, as Zoom is telling me. I didn't catch quite the beginning of that. Was it more of a just general across the board? Was there a specific bus line that you're seeing that issue, or bus stop where the front door is blocked by a vendor, or
mostly on 181st Street and San Nicolas, on both north and south, and also on 181st on the south corner.
I heard 181st and St. Nick's, both north and southbound. What was the last one?
So both on the southeast of 181st and also on the southwest corner.
Got it. Okay. I believe generally vendors are not allowed to be parked in a bus stop. I believe that's just a regulation the city has. But if that's something you're seeing in a particular spot where a vendor is often there, I would call, I believe you call 311 or get in touch with DOT would be the one to, well, actually, DOT can comment. I'm not sure if it's DOT or it's more of the street vendor regulation that might be the Department of Consumer Affairs would take care of that. But yeah, but we would, you know, when that's seen, we want to know about it so we can make sure that the front of the bus is accessible for our customers.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions or anything? So Howie, I've made people aware that we're trying to see, confirm that we can have sort of a special TNT meeting on July 6th, I think it is, to cover the next phase elevator 190th A train. Just remind me, that would be for kickoff in September, correct?
Yeah, if everything remains on schedule with 181st Street on the A, that will conclude in August. And then in September, at some point, the 190th on the A will, the elevators will be taken out of service for the full replacement.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I put out, you know, I've asked Ebenezer and Eli just sort of how that needs to go. But I don't have any feedback yet. And, but I thank you for being here, and then, yeah, so we'll circle back.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks again.
Yeah, it's good to see all of you and hear all of you. And again, I hope everyone stays safe and well.
You as well, Howie. Regards to Team MTA.
Thank
you, Howie. Same to you, man.
All right, just a few items, newish business, oldish business. First, on sort of new things that are bubbling, but is that we've had two groups express, or people, both actually coming in from community board members, have come to us to talk about street co-naming. And just as a reminder, we consider that next in October. So I anticipate we might have those. In both cases, there's sort of a nexus to the COVID crisis, or actually that's not completely true. In both cases, there are some special circumstances. Daryl Cochrane's actually taking the lead on one in terms of the idea, and it's something that he talked about in the health committee. And then Domingo Estevez has another that he's been working on. So just, keep that in mind. We'll have that coming up in October. I know sometimes I forget myself that street co-namings are considered twice a year by traffic and transportation. So that's happening. Second, on more of an old business item. So last month, obviously, we spent a lot of time on the proposal from the Riverside, the Riverside Drive work. And so the short answer, and as everybody knows, the issues of the part of the proposal that related to the middle drive and making that one-way southbound are sort of left unresolved. And we obviously asked for sort of like more clarity on sort of what the options were, and we weren't ready to consider that. I've asked DOT to be back at our September meeting, and so that we have an opportunity to get a more full presentation of that aspect and have them, respond to some of the concerns, but also to give us more background on sort of why that was the recommendation. Because obviously when they presented, a plan with a lot of different parts. So we really didn't get to understand sort of the full sort of case of why they came to that recommendation. As a specific matter, they did come back to us with, and again, we'll hear more about it in September, with that one, the sort of more narrow concern about the bus and emergency vehicles that will be traversing that section should it become one way, and whether that was going to be safe, whether there'd be enough room to pass, deal with the congestion, etc. So they actually did come back with some reactions to, how you might create more cushion to avoid congestion and any problems with buses and emergency vehicles, like through the no standing. But again, they can bring that forward, in September, because I think we need to take it as a whole. I would say the last sort of leg of that is that, and this comes up when, just now when we're talking about 157th and Edward Morgan, Wayne Benjamin has over time raised the issue of, Broadway and Edward Morgan and people making that turn. And it sort of became clear again through this conversation about the middle drive that we need to understand what are the assumptions that DOT is making about where traffic trying to do one thing and that has done one thing for all these years, where are they assuming that will go? What's all the traffic diversion aspects of that? So again, September on that. And
Debbie, if I could just add to that or clarify it. So basically, they're going to come back in September and they will be addressing all of the various concerns that we heard about making this street one way. Is that essentially part of their program?
Absolutely. And, to my mind, again, we sort of didn't put a lot of precision around what does further consideration mean. But so this is the opportunity, again, for they hear the concern about congestion. So they have some ideas about how to address that through no standing. But in terms of this committee's evaluation, and we never voted on that aspect of it, I think we need to be able to spend more time with the assumptions and where it came from, because people will still all taken together have to make a decision. So I want to make sure, just in the way, just to just basically have, as if that was a standalone thing. I know it's not a standalone and it fits into other, fits into a whole picture, but I don't think we have a precise enough understanding of like how or why, I think, anyway, enough said. So it's back on the agenda for further consideration as contemplated by the resolution that was passed at the last meeting. I'm quite certain I'm forgetting something. So this is the last chance to remind me what old business, new business that I am forgetting.
Hey, Debbie, Tomar, just
Yeah.
old business that we continue to speak about. So we want to make sure that every month we kind of get an update from Lyle, is in regards to the lighting on the east side highway leading from 178th Street all the way to Dykeman, that dark area. I know last month Lyle spoke about the fact that I think Con Edison was doing electrical work there to try to make sure that they can bridge to the electricity there to get those lights going, because this is a multifaceted project that is not just DOT related, but it encumbers other entities as well. So if there's any update there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I
Wait,
don't.
but wasn't our lighting further south weren't we talking on the Harlem River? Or were we talking all the way up to Dykeman?
Well,
Lyle, you want to?
yeah, the lighting issue occurs right where you begin to make that off ramp towards 100.
Yes, is it from 10th Avenue and Dykeman down?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all pitch black, all that whole area.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get some updates on that. I haven't heard anything back from Con Ed in a little bit, but I'll see if I can get some answers for you.
And also, my block still doesn't have any streetlights, hardly any. The same block that Debbie lives on.
That's on Cabrini, right? Yeah, there.
Right.
I think that there's some issues regarding that because of the pandemic. From what I understand, I think it's in regards to some foundational issues that they have to address. But since alternate site is suspended, they can't get their vehicles in order to be adjacent to those foundations. So the work has to be paused for the time being. So when alternate site gets back into effect and those cars are moved, then they should be able to get those cars in there in order to do the rest of the foundational work. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
Ask one question.
Yep.
Thank you. So in terms of the 157 overlap between city bikes and other questions and 158 southbound, is it possible to have some kind of meeting during the summer with the various parties like Maria and Jack and our group and DOT to kind of pull it all together, and city bikes, of course, because there's a overlap questioning about 157th Street and how that's going to flow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
we can. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna reserve the right not to special meeting that yet. I mean, let's see how this evolves, because I mean, my understanding from City Bike presentation, Lyle, correct me if I'm wrong, is that pending where all that comes out, then we'll have to have like a separate process to understand what your proposal is for that area, because we don't know what your proposal is. The fact that we need that 157th and Edward Morgan proposed bike station was probably the only one on this that got feedback multiple times. That's going to go through our response back to DOT on that presentation. And then third, I should say, and Bruce, you're probably getting at the fact, like, weren't you going to say something? We are right, I was. I have asked Lyle to kind of inventory for us, the 157th, like coming from Broadway. Sorry, Edward Morgan from Broadway. That part wasn't on last month's presentation, just the Riverside Drive end of Edward Morgan was. But there was work that this committee was part of for Broadway that sort of included that area. And then it's sort of relates to what we'll talk about in the September meeting when we start talking about where does traffic who was normally going to the bridge through there go. And so it fits into the diversion of traffic discussion. But I've asked for like an inventory of all the projects sort of around there that have somewhat touched upon it, but not necessarily super directly, and whether that and how that has, so first of all, what they are, and second of all, how has it impacted pedestrian safety there, because that was a place that was historically had a lot of injuries. But it's because also some of this was the year I wasn't on the committee. I'm just trying to kind of see it in one place of like which of the other DOT projects around there have made changes to that spot and what was the impact of those changes. So there's a few different ways we're getting at this, but I think if somebody's got additional feedback on the Citi Bike thing, they need to put it through us and I will consolidate it. If they have comments related to the Middle Drive issue, we'll take that up in September. So, and then I guess Lyle, if you could just sort of comment on my synopsis, but also just let us know, like, will you come back to us for like a little sub moment of considering the Citi Bike stations that we didn't get to see that are in the Riverside area?
Yeah, the plan is, as far as at least those stations can be considered for the area around the Oval. Yeah, that's essentially pending what ends up happening as far as the Riverside project. So, that conversation, will stem from what happens in September. As far as the projects that we've done around that area, primarily around 157th, Edward Morgan Place, and Broadway. If you can recall, I think it was in 2018, the May meeting of 2018. I remember this vividly. When we had the meeting up at Allen Hospital, this was that was the first evening that we had the presentation for our Broadway project between 157th and 170th streets as far as traffic and pedestrian safety changes. And at least by 157th and Broadway, Edward Morgan Place, that immediate area, what we had done, at least there, we added some pedestrian space in the area in a painted median in order to shorten the pedestrian crossings. And we did an extension of the left turn lane to provide more queuing space on Broadway. If you remember, that left turn lane was pretty short as you were approaching 157th. So we lengthened that left turn lane so that way they'd have more space for cars that were going straight to have their own dedicated space. And we did some signal timing changes around that area so it would better sync up with the way traffic was flowing and to address spillback onto Broadway. There is a capital project that is being looked at, which does include this area. But I don't have any specifics as to what that project entails. It might address that direct area, by Edward Morgan and 157th. So we can have those conversations, as that information comes in on our end. But yeah, if we can also take a look at that specific area, between Broadway and Edward Morgan and 157th, independent, of what happens. So yeah, based on a couple of different factors, like what you're mentioning, Debbie, based off of what's already happened there and, what we've already seen, and based off of what's pending for the Riverside project and the capital project that seems to be forthcoming. Yeah, there are a couple of different eyes in this area. So as the information is coming in, at least for the future, I'll give that, I'll give you guys the heads up on that. And like I said, we had made those improvements at least, by the 157th Street corridor. That's the southernmost portion of that Broadway project from about 2 years ago. So, we tried to address at least the furthest easternmost point, for that last project that we had. But we can take a closer look if need be at that western portion by Edward Morgan Broadway, 157th, depending on how things go between now and September. Yeah.
Thank you. I think maybe our community will get together during the summer and hash this all out, and then we can have better, more focused input to you all, because, for instance, the city bikes could go across from next to Pay and Park, like Maria said, where there's a crosshatch area that's not being used right now. So there's some options like that that maybe we can help you suss out. Thank you.
No problem. And you know where to find me. So if there are any questions or comments or concerns you have between now and September, by all means, you know where to find me, Bruce. It's no problem. Anytime.
Can't hear you, Debbie.
We lost you, Debbie.
Well, we still can't hear you, Debbie.
Oh, yeah,
Hey.
that was
We can hear
not
you.
the dog ate my homework, but the cat walked over the keyboard. If we could get, Lyle, something that the committee can see about, so fine, you did those changes in 2018, but again, you did the changes to make it safer because people were getting hit on a not irregular basis. So just like before, after, like, did it have the intended effect? Have the injuries gone down? Because yeah, that's it. And then that closes that point. But I just, like, when I was asked the question recently by another board member, I didn't have an answer because I was like, I think we did something already. It's not that it was
Yeah.
never addressed, but we also didn't, it's good to tick off the box and say it worked and people are getting hit less often. So just if there's a way to get that data at some point, I'd certainly like to see it. And I'd like the committee to have that, as we're looking into things, because
Hey, Debbie, I have a question, but Natalie has her hand up as well, so I want to see if we can get her.
well,
unless she
Omar,
has
you
any-
go, and then Natalie will finish us out.
Gotcha. My question is in regards to a recent presentation that was made by DOT, which is in terms of the potential project that will take place on 178th Street. And this is the one that's going to fix all that traffic coming off the George Washington Bridge. When will we know more about that project? Like, that's kind of like the question that I have.
That's a good question. We're trying to figure that out too. Like you said, everything with this pandemic is pretty much throwing everything out of whack. Ideally, we were supposed to do that during the summer.
Yep.
As you know, everything's kind of up in the air for us and other city agencies now. So I'll try to see where we stand on this. I know that we've been going through our different projects to see what can be done, what resources we have, and the time frame. But definitely I can see where we stand on that and see if it's a possibility for it to be done during the summer. But yeah, I'll see what I can find out for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, Natalie?
Sorry, I had left my hand up. I had nothing else to add.
Okay, great.
All right. All right. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Third.
This meeting is adjourned. 9:13. I would say goodbye for the summer, but I know I will see you all again. If nothing else, hopefully we'll have one special meeting in July to take up the MTA matter. But I appreciate you all very much, and wish everybody well.
Same to you all.
Thank you too. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, David.
Best committee on the
Be
board.
well.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Chanel. Thanks, Ebenezer. Good night. Good night.
Good night.